Today's lesson we're going to be covering some folk fingerstyle patterns. We're only going to be using two chords with the left hand, and that's going to be your regular open C chord and your regular open G chord. You're mostly going to be seeing my right hand, and I'll do the explaining from there, so you might see my right hand talking like this a little bit. Just so you know what I'm referring to the fingers, I'll be using sometimes the classical terms, which is P, I, M and A for fingers, for right hand fingers. I'll also refer to it as thumb and fingers 1, 2 and 3. So Jedi, I think we'll go to a close-up now of the right hand. The most important thing when you're starting off playing your fingerstyle is making sure that your finger numbers 1, 2 and 3 are resting on the top 3 strings. You can see that the third finger there is resting on the thinnest string, second finger on the second string, and your first finger is resting on the third string. Now those fingers are always going to pluck those strings and no other strings. They might later on if you're getting more into more advanced stuff, but for now that's the quite a firm rule. Now thumb alternates between the other 3 strings, so all of the patterns, thumb is going to move around between those strings, and these 3 fingers are only going to pluck the designated strings that they've been put on now. Now in this first example we're not using the third finger, so we're really just using the thumb and our first 2 fingers. Now, whenever we're doing this kind of a Simon and Garfunkel style finger style pattern, thumb is alternating between the 5th string, which is the root note C, and the note E, which is found on the D string, on the 4th string. So what we're going to start off with, it's worth practicing leaving your first and second fingers on and getting used to being able to play that alternating thumb pattern on those 2 strings. Now, you definitely want to have already downloaded the sheet music, the PDF file from the website, and you'll be looking at example 1. Now, when you're looking at example 1, you'll see that the first 2 notes that you play together is the thumb and the second finger at the same time. And then, if you wanted to, just to start off with, you might just play those 2 and continue alternating the bass. So you'd have this. Might be worth practicing that a few times first. Then introducing the second note that you'd be playing with your first finger on the G string. So you play this. Practice that a few times, and then try and play the whole of the example 1 pattern, which is this. Thumb and second finger together. Thumb, 1, thumb, 2, thumb, together, thumb, 1, thumb, 2, thumb. Now the trick with these sort of fingerstyle patterns is making sure you do them really slowly and getting them right, and trying to keep the tempo even. So you'd have this kind of count would be 1, 2 and 3 and 4. 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 Practice that a lot really slowly and make sure you get it right before you start speeding it up, and then just try and gradually speed it up. So start real slow, and then if you're comfortable with it, move a little bit faster, a little bit faster. So that's the progression system that you should use. So that was example 1. Now example 2 is very, very similar. The thumb is still going to be alternating between the same 2 strings, but now we introduce the notes that are together come on beat 2. So you'd have thumb, then when your thumb moves over to the 4th string, you're also going to pluck with the second finger on the B string. So you'd have then thumb, first, thumb, thumb, together with the second finger, thumb, first, thumb. Now, that's example 1 and 2. Now after you've got both example 1 and example 2 down, you might want to try combining example 1 and 2, because it's a really common thing to have going on in folk style finger picking, which would sound like this. So example 1, straight into 2. And again, example 1, example 2. Okay, so that's example 1 and 2 taken care of. Now, if we look at examples 3 and 4, we now change to a G chord with your left hand. Now what's happening here, all of the pattern is staying exactly the same, except the first note, the note that used to be playing here on the 5th string, now moves to the 6th string. But it's now jumping from here to here. So it's jumping from the 6th string to the 4th string. So example 3 is exactly the same as example 1, just with the thumb moved over to the 6th string instead of the 5th string. So you'd end up, example 3 sounds like this. And example 4 is exactly the same as example 2, but with the thumb moved over to the 6th string. So it would sound like this. That was wrong, I'll do that again. So then you would again practice changing for example 3 directly into example 4, having Now, the next stage would be for you to practice changing between the C-shaped ones, which is example 1 and 2, to the G-shaped ones, which is example 3 and 4. So if I just start here with, I'm just going to use example 1 and then example 3, so I'm not going to do the two different patterns, just the one, so you get the idea. So here's example 1 on the C, and then change to the G, back to the C, and back to G. The last thing I just wanted to explain to you, we've now covered the different patterns for the 5th string root, which was the C chord, and also for the 6th string root, which was the G chord. Now what's really important that you understand is that all of those patterns, that, like the C shape with the root note on the 5th string, those patterns work for C, say a G with a B bass, and an A minor chord, or an A major chord, or a B7 chord. Anything with a 5th string root, that works. Those patterns, example 1 and 1 and 2 will work for any chord with a 5th string root. And the other patterns, the one that we've been looking at, G, would also work with, say, a D with an F sharp bass, and an E minor, that kind of shape, so you get all of those nice little Bob Dylan, sitting wondering why, baby. All of those sort of tricks are all going to be just using the same patterns, but being able to change between the different chords and knowing what note the root note, what string the root note is on. That's the trick, that's the thing that you have to try and make sure you know every time you go to play a different fingerstyle pattern, that you use the correct pattern for the chord. But that gets explained a little bit more on the website, so you might want to go and check that out. The website, of course, is www.justinguitar.com. So go and check out the PDF files. You definitely want to have them in front of you, because it's a lot easier to follow along with your eye. As you're looking at the sheet, you can see that there's the bass note and there's the bass note with the finger played at the same time. So definitely worth a look at that. Okay, I'll be back in when you get to lesson 2 and download it, you'll see where we cover using the 3rd finger as well to get those extra notes on the E string. So see you next lesson.